Hello and welcome to North Country Matters. My name is Donna Seymour. I'm a member of the St. Lawrence County branch of the American Association of University Women, one of the civic partners for this show. Today our guest is Sue Rice. Sue is someone who has worked on poverty issues for many, many years as part of your career, and we're going to be talking about the Earned Income Tax Credit and the VITA program, which is the Volunteer Tax Preparers Program. So, Sue, give us a little bit of background about you, about what you've done in your career and why this is important to you.
I've been in St. Lawrence County for well over 30 years and have not seen the marginal income rate or opportunity change much. I heard politicians reference brain drain, job creation, all of the spin doctor words that would change how we view St. Lawrence County. But the last big economic boom was during the 1950s when they built the Seaway, and we should start being honest about it. So after I had children and I saw how the income tax structure was designed to either penalize you for being poor or keep you in a marginal subsistence living, I decided that there were tools out there that our economic development leaders failed to recognize as economic development. And I went to work for a small nonprofit in an equally poor county, Franklin County, and we worked very, very, very hard to build up a VITA program. And VITA is specific to families' income tax preparation. There's two separate programs. There's one called the TCE, which AARP runs, and their training is designed to help seniors and people who are aging out of the employment structure, whereas the VITA program is to maximize the tax law for the benefit of the families that are actively working, and to prepare young children, our youth who are participating in the workforce, how to prepare themselves to become independent from their parents. So that was my motivation and goal.
That's your experience. So let's talk a little bit about the Earned Income Tax Credit, and a little bit about its history. It's a refundable federal tax credit for low and moderate income working individuals and couples, particularly designed for folks with children. And it depends on your income structure and the number of dependents you have about how much you qualify for. So give us a little thumbnail about the history of it. It's actually been around for a long time, hasn't it?
Yeah, it was one of the elements of the Welfare Reform Act in the 90s. And
actually, this predates that in '75, but then it was adjusted in the 90s. But it was actually first created in 1975, so it's been around a very long time.
It's been around a very, very long time.
Yeah.
And when they tried to change the Welfare Act and try to move people into the workforce, because when you're living on a marginal income and you're used to living on income supports, many times for a family, it is better for them to live on the income supports than it is to them actually go out into the workforce and earn $8,000. So, I mean, there's been slip slides to it. So in the last 20 years, 30 years, they've increased the Earned Income Tax Credit because they've seen how many children and families where there's a predominant use of the credit are actually lifted up out of poverty. And there's a huge perception that is marketed by, I would say, politicians, not by families, where they see the Earned Income Tax Credit as the model to go out and go buy your big screen TV or something that they deem foolish and useless. Families use it to fix their cars.
Right.
Families use it to put a roof over their head. Many times it's to catch up on old bills.
Pay the light bill, pay the water bill, make sure you've got food on the table, you name it, the kind of things that we all have to struggle every day to meet.
Right. And part of the reasons why we miss some of those families, like 80% of the people in 2015 that were eligible, 100% of the taxpayers that were eligible in St. Lawrence County, 80% filed for it. I guarantee you the 20% that didn't realize they were eligible.
Right.
And although the earned income tax credit isn't a tool in the toolbox to get a single person who's working at a minimum wage job out of poverty, it's still, it's still a credit card payment. It's still a car payment, or maybe an insurance payment. Car insurance is a huge issue.
Yes, it is.
And
we know the transportation barriers in this county if you don't have an automobile. So it's a necessity in places like this.
And there's 45,000 people in the workforce in St. Lawrence County, and 77% of them drive to work.
Right.
So I would say car insurance and repairs are the primary use of
Sure.
earned income tax credit. It's also become a predatory tool. I can tell you they have locked down how we file our income taxes for everybody, because it was big business in some of the southern states where they would just create families that had 3 children that earned less than $42,000, and they all ended up with $10,000 checks from the U.S. government. So now you have to have 2 forms of income. 2 forms of identification. Mm-hmm. You have to do that even if you use the free file websites. Right. And this year, they're withholding tax refunds for earned income tax credit, child tax credit. I think the release date is somewhere around February 26th, and that is so that they can put a second set of eyes on every single one of the returns. Mm-hmm. Drug dealers in Florida were making more money on earned income tax credit than they were on drugs. Everything turns into a predatory, very...
Right. I suspect they're putting more of an eye on folks at the low end than they are the billionaires, right, and where their tax deductions are coming from. And that's a good segue to, let's explain the difference between a tax credit and a tax deduction.
Earned income tax credit is a pure credit. It doesn't reduce your tax liability. Child tax credit can go both ways. So you can have a deduction which will reduce your tax liability. If you don't have a tax liability, it's a zero-sum game. But if you have an earned income tax credit, that will go against both, and you have cash.
Right, you'll actually get money back.
Yep.
You'll get money back, and that's important, because that's how it actually works to help people move forward out of poverty, is that they're actually getting money in their pocket to make their living expenses more manageable. Right,
and I can tell you that just from a personal side, having earned income tax credit, that also goes on your FAFSA. It is a tool to recognize that there's a second set of eyes on your income when your kids go to apply for financial aid. There's a lot of utilizations for earned income tax credit elsewhere. It's lifted you out of poverty. It's considered in our dynamics. There's over $3 million in earned income tax credit last time I checked, which was like 4 years ago, just coming into this little county. It's more than that. Gosh, I think it's a huge amount of money. I don't have access to that tax data anymore because I'm not part of the system, but it was a huge amount of money. And just think of what will happen if those entitlement programs go. Nobody's bouncing around with these big high-end jobs coming into this area.
No. There's no seaway going to be built up here anymore. There are no large employers. There's no big economic development that's going to happen that's going to have that kind of an impact. So we have to do this small.
It hasn't happened since 1950.
Yeah.
And this is not just St. Lawrence County. This is rural America. And rural America, this is one of the few programs that the Republican base and the Democratic base agreed on. And in fact, last year, Paul Ryan and Obama had put forth a different plan that would actually increase it so that it would pull the single tax filers up out of poverty.
Into the same program ability, right?
So if you're making less than $14,000, let's say $8,000, you're going to get a $293 payment, but you're going to have a tax liability of $900, 10%. So you're going to end up not being pulled up unless we do something with the single payers. And you don't have to work, and there is an age limit on earned income tax credit. It's 65. And one of the things that some people do not know or recognize, if they're caring, there's a lot of grandparents caring for their grandchildren, they can take them for earned income tax credit if they're living
So they're
with them.
still eligible
Yep.
if they have minor children that they're responsible
Yep.
for, right?
Yep. And if you're a foster family, you can take
Mhm.
those foster children for earned income tax. It's just like being a family.
Sure it is, sure it is. You have the expenses and
And,
your responsibility.
and the rules have been adjusted to fit those non-traditional household values. I mean, the federal government has spent a lot of time building this up as an anti-poverty tool, and it is a product, and since it's such a big business now, our government, we should recognize it as that and protect it as much as we can. I can tell you that as a single parent, it made more sense for me because there's a phase out of earned income tax credit. So if I make $25,000, I'm on the lower end of the parabola. If I make $18,920, I'm at the top end. So I cut back my work so I could maximize earned income tax credit. I made $1.85 per hour doing that versus my tax liability and what I was getting.
Mhm.
And in turn, I was able to volunteer on the school board, be the PTA
And
president.
Make sure your
all
kids
that
went to
stuff.
college too.
Yep.
That was another thing that
That
you
was
were able
another
to do. So let's switch a little bit now and talk about the VITA program, the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program. You brought along a few visuals here to give us a little hint about what it takes to become a VITA volunteer,
A VITA
which apparently is the ability to lift
I know.
large objects.
This year, the Neighborhood Center and SUNY Canton in St. Lawrence County are the two VITA sites. I can tell you there's trained people working in the AARP site in Canton. They're cross-trained between the two programs. And there's a large site in Franklin County that I believe you can access through CCOM. They run a Super Saturdays for that program. And you do a lot of training for the VITA program. And you test out for it. There's 3 levels, and you have a site administrator who goes through your returns to make sure that you're not practicing out of scope. So we don't give tax advice. We don't tell people what they should be doing with their money. We're not financial planners. If you do walk through the door and you haven't got a bank account, we try to alleviate that situation so that you can have a direct deposit and have access to your money quicker. I think you're going to see us, the federal government and the state, phase completely out of paper
Actual
checks.
sending a
Yeah.
check in the mail, right? Well, the VITA program itself helps people who make, the cap is about $54,000, so I guess the assumption is after that, you need much more expert help in terms of working on your taxes. But it's meant to help people with disabilities, limited English abilities, low-income folks, even middle-income folks, depending on the size of their family. So there's a lot of people it's meant to help. And the filing your taxes can be pretty intimidating under the best of conditions, can't it?
Absolutely.
And
It's become a very predatory system.
yeah, it has. And as you mentioned, there's also the special program for the elderly at the AARP, do a lot of work, a lot of volunteer work on that as well. So there is that kind of help. And
And with the AARP, can I mention
Sure.
that there is no income limit?
there is, okay, there isn't,
They-
okay.
If there's a very, very complex return, they won't take it. It'll be out of scope. But basically, they can do, stocks and bond sales. They can do things that would be out of scope for the VITA program.
And that's free to people. They don't need to, you don't have to hire a tax accountant, you don't have to have
Nope.
any kind of specialized help that you actually pay for to get access to that.
And they have a site at Maplewood, so they do meet with their seniors regularly. And the nice part about it is that if you stay with the program, your tax return rolls over. So there's continuity, you know where to go, and
That's right. And for a lot of people, their income levels and their income streams don't change that much from year to year, especially at that age. So it's going to be a lot easier to continue to file your taxes. So one of the things, and you mentioned a little bit about this before, is that the earned income tax credit actually benefits the local economy because it's money coming into the county that wasn't there before.
Right.
And so it isn't just the individual families, but it's the counties as well, or the communities inside the county. And what we know from looking at St. Lawrence County Services is there's a lot of money that the county is responsible for. There are people who need help with, through the heat program
Right.
for their fuel, and they need help with food, they need help with their medical expenses. So putting more money in the pockets of the people who might otherwise be coming to the county for that kind of help spreads the pot a lot further, doesn't it?
Right. And some of those programs you're not eligible for unless you've maximized out all of the income opportunities you have, and that's included in your tax return.
Right. So you actually need all that documentation in order to even start to go forward.
Not for HEAP, but
Yeah.
now that we have facilitated enrollers throughout the county for the Affordable Health Care Act, you have to have this information.
Right, right. And of course, we don't know what's going to happen to the Affordable Care Act either, because there's a lot of talk about that in terms of where things are going to go. You had provided some charts and some statistics here in terms of income. The median income of households in St. Lawrence County was $44,700. And about 15% of our households actually fall below $15,000 a year.
Right.
Pretty hard to make ends meet.
Right.
And 5% have incomes over $150,000. I don't know those people. I wish I did.
Well, they're
Maybe
not-
we could be adopted.
I have a few of those friends, and they do not understand when I talk about this, what the language that I'm talking about. Like, if you have a family of 3, you're eligible for earned income tax credit if your household income is $47,955. That might sound like a lot, but not with 3 kids.
No, it isn't. It isn't at all. That's for sure. And
And child tax credit goes away at the age of 17. So
when you're just getting into some of the most expensive years of having a child,
Right.
which is, getting them ready for college.
and your kids, as long as you're filing your FAFSA and they're your dependent, you have them until they're 25. And I found out through real-time experience that even if your child is independent and living separate from you, his financial aid or her financial aid is not independent of your income until they're 24. So that's where the earned income tax credit ties in.
So that can be
They're all interrelated
that can be a
systems.
big help for financial aid and for those kinds of things that students need for a long time, a very long time, in
Right.
terms of, because not everybody is graduating from college in 2 years or 4 years, and if you need or want to go on for further education, and for example, if you want to be a teacher in New York State, you have to go on. You must get your master's in order to get permanent certification. So there are people who are going to have to continue to
Right.
do that.
And this benefited my family personally because my kids took gap years. And so their earned income tax credit was spread out to the age of 25.
Right. One of the things that we know about the earned income tax credit is that it is a big poverty reducer, and people don't always realize that the only way you qualify for it is if you work.
Right.
You can't get it if you're not actually working. So it's a program that encourages work, doesn't it?
Right, but if you look at policy, there's some, like everything, there's the yin and yang. There is a penalty to the earned income tax credit for married households, because if you combine the income of a married household versus as if you were 2 separate independent workers, one per taking the head of household, then you only have to take the income of that earner. You don't have to have household income to qualify. Your household income won't bump you out of the earned income tax
Right.
credit. So if on a policy level you want to encourage your constituents to be married, the earned income tax credit structure is counterintuitive to that. Does that make any sense?
Well, like everything to do with taxes, I guess not.
But if you go back to the premise of all your statistics, your female-headed household incomes, because females make 15% less than men
That's
in the
right.
workforce, then they're already at a disadvantage. And this isn't an entitlement, it's to lift you up out of poverty.
Right.
It's not just to give money away. And generally, if there's like, if there was a huge push in the Bush administration to encourage marriage as, you know, as a policy-driven instrument. This was counterintuitive to it. And it's going to stay that way, I would expect.
I would guess that you're right. So you're somebody who has worked a lot with folks in poverty. You understand it in terms of, from a policy point of view, you understand it from a personal point of view, not always having had a lot of income. Based on your experience, how important is the earned income tax credit to families here in the North Country?
It's critical. It's what's keeping toilet paper in people's households. It's keeping cars on the road. The one thing, and if you're in development at all, I've been in development, I've been across different things. You can go into any community and with 5 seconds you can see what socioeconomic factors exist. When you have multitudes of little gas stations with kitchens, that are selling groceries, when you have Jackson Hewitt, when you have a ton of these little payday cash loan, I mean, there are all those indicators. You drive through towns, you can pick, most of them are very predatory in nature. Payday loans, we don't have a lot up here, but where you bring something into a store.
Pawn shops, yes.
And I mean, like, you drive through certain sections of Buffalo, you know exactly. Everybody's making less than $14,000. You know what I mean? You know those poverty indicators. So if you're looking to place a manufacturing plant, you're gonna want to stay away from those kind of communities. Dependency economics usually indicate a very low-skilled workforce, people who are will be expensive on your health insurance plan because they haven't been taken care of. They're on Medicaid, Medicare, and an aging workforce. So those are the kind of things that if you're a community development person, this kind of money can drive out that train. And I have been not successful convincing my politicians of its value, because I think they've taken it for granted. I don't think anybody should take anything for granted anymore.
No, I think you're right there, and we're seeing that all across the board. The kinds when we have a Secretary of Health and Human Services who was just confirmed yesterday, who talks about getting rid of Social Security, talks about looking at Medicare, talks about looking at Medicaid, talks about the Affordable Care Act. Those are the programs that allow North Country families to live out of poverty. You touch Social Security, you touch Medicare, you touch the Affordable Care Act, it's going to throw all of us into a great deal of crisis.
Right. I mean, I believe the St. Lawrence Health Systems right now has the highest. I think they're our largest employer. I think they've actually beat Walmart. And Walmart is actually the one that taught me how valuable earned income tax credit is. Because when you go to work for Walmart, they do all of the income supplements and balance it against your wage when they hire you. I mean, they're the poster child for entitlements.
They're
we've
looking at how to,
their employment base for 20
their
years.
poor wage structure. Our government, our counties are supplementing their poor wage structures, right? By design, by their design.
And they're smart to do it. I tried to take it out to some of the employers here that were struggling. They just didn't get it. No. And I was beating my head against the wall. And, I know politicians have to talk about what they bring back to their communities, so you always constantly feel poor, but I've never felt poor in St. Lawrence County. I'm very well educated. I have a great degree from Clarkson. I've been able to survive with my family. My daughter went to one of the best schools in the country and is now in a funded doctorate at another one of the best schools. My son is on the president's list at SUNY Canton. I've never felt poor here.
Right.
I have felt that I've lived in abundance. I've used earned income tax credit to my benefit. Like Donald Trump says, that makes me smart.
That's right.
If I would have not earned in St. Lawrence County any more than probably $45,000 with an MBA. I'd have to leave. I didn't want to. So why not scale back my work and earn these type of supplements, which is exactly what I did.
Well, you know,
And it got
you mentioned
financially-
you mentioned St. Lawrence Health Services as the largest employer. It is the largest employer in the county. It's certainly followed very closely by the education industry between our 17 school districts and our 4 colleges. And those are good employers. Those are good employers, those are good jobs. But a lot of the jobs up here aren't good. They are the low-income jobs, they're the low-wage jobs, they're the poor or no-benefit jobs, and those are the folks that can take advantage of these programs. And there's no, the tax code is the tax code, and it's there for people to use to their benefit. We don't all maybe use it as well as Donald Trump does, but we certainly could, and there's the help to get it done.
Right.
And that's the thing that
That's
we need
the
to let
value in
people
it.
know.
I can tell you, I've been audited twice with less than $30,000 worth of income. And primarily it was due to my taking earned income tax credit. The first time it happened, it was because the IRS did not think I could possibly support a family on that level of income. And I won. But it does make you vulnerable because they are looking at this money as, wow, now we have to double check to make sure that people aren't saying that they have kids in their households when they don't. And there is some scrutiny to the program. And going through a VITA site means that your information has been scrutinized and validated.
So it actually protects you from audit and from things like that. So that's important information as well. Because the last thing you want to do is get a letter in the mail saying that somebody wants to audit you. That is one of the most terrifying and intimidating letters that you could ever get, especially if you're at the low end of the scale, because you can't fight the IRS and win, or at least you don't think you can.
Well, and there are tools. Like if you've had problems, you can bring those problems to you, and there's an IRS office in Syracuse and there's an IRS office in Burlington, and both of those facilities will meet with you. And I've never had an issue with how people perceive information, but it's very black and white. And if those kids don't live with you for 180 days, they should not be in your earned income tax.
Right. But of course, one of the problems with an office in Syracuse and Burlington is that you have to get there, which means taking time off from work, which isn't always easy, and it means transportation, which may be a barrier for folks at the lower end of the income scale.
So I always say, take advantage of the VITA program, because these people are well trained, and especially given the complexity of the Affordable Health Care Act on your tax return.
And we don't know what's going to happen with that, so that's just going to make things even more complicated. Well, Sue, thank you for coming in today. These are a couple of really important programs that people need to know about. There's a lot of people who qualify for them, and they need to take advantage of them. This is early in the tax season, so they actually have time before they file their taxes to take advantage of these programs.
And can I mention that these programs always welcome volunteers. So if you feel as strongly about the wealth of St. Lawrence County and trying to protect it, you can contact myself, you can contact the neighborhood center, you can contact the AARP. There's still time to train and become certified.
And if not this year, always you can do it for next year. Yeah, always for next year.
We start in July looking for volunteers.
And that's something, especially like if you are one of the newly retired, that may be something that would be very fulfilling for somebody to think about getting trained this year to start that work next year.
Yeah.
So.
And I tell all of my kids who are in their 20s, friends, volunteer now, because you will see how your income plays out with other people's tax returns. How you're seeing how they're putting their money to their benefit, how they, there's
the
ways
perils,
to
the
make,
pitfalls, and the smart
and
decisions.
there's ways to make your money work for you.
Thank you, Sue. Our time is up. These conversations are a production of North Country Matters, which are filmed here in the Fred W. Cleveland Computer Center of the Potsdam Public Library. This show is a civic collaboration between the St. Lawrence County branch of the American Association of University Women, the St. Lawrence County League of Women Voters, and the Potsdam Public Library. Thank you. Until next time, remember, our North Country matters. Sue, thanks.
Yeah, no problem.